All right, welcome. It's 7 o'clock. We're going to get started with the Wednesday wind down with Dan and Friends, the podcast slash webinar for frustrated hikers and backpackers that are locked inside during COVID-19. I'm Dan Conger, and tonight my beverage of choice is a Walker 805. So that's me. If you'd introduce yourself.
Sure, I am Mike Conger, his brother, and I have a beautiful margarita made by my lovely wife, Ro. Cheers.
Awesome. Cool. Good. Well, cheers. Tonight, this is titled A Gear Hack Show, and I'm not exactly sure if that's quite the right title. It's a gear hack, gear modification, gear customization. But the idea for tonight is tweak your gear to make it fit you, right? The way your gear comes is not necessarily the way you need to use it. We all have minor adjustments that we want to do and have at it, right? So this is not intended, it's not intended to, Kelly said the audio's a little off. Oh, such is life. It's not intended to be an all-inclusive concept. This is really a mindset on how you deal with your gear. So I'm going to cover 3 different categories of topics. You can repurpose gear, you can modify gear, and then you can build gear. So I'm going to look through all 3 of those. So Mike, have you done any real modification to any of your gear, or have you done any of those 3 categories?
No, just let's see. Mostly it's been purchased, and so we did a little hack on the inline for your bladder, so we could refill easily. But that was all purchased. Did a little bit of homemade we carry the umbrellas when we go.
And you've done a little bit. You have some sewing skills. Yeah, we were getting some reports of audio and video lag, so we're just going to live with it tonight. Okay. Sorry, guys. What's tough is is it my internet connection? Could be Zoom. So, okay.
I was also saying, I remember we made the camp chairs. So yeah, I mean, those were, I don't know if they're quite hacks, but those are homemade gear, and then they went along with our trekking poles. So stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to start off with repurposing gear. So the idea behind repurposing gear is to take something that has a purpose, but reuse it for the way you want to use it on the trail. So I'm just going to start off with a super, super simple repurpose. Camp towel. Okay. REI sells the $20 stupid, well, they're good. The $20 camp towel. This is Trader Joe's synthetic towel. Just a few bucks, you get 3 of them. This is all you need to dry off when you come out of a lake, right? Or to mop up in your tent. That's repurpose. It wasn't intended for camping. It works great for one. The other repurpose I have is titanium cup, right? I don't use a titanium cup anymore, but they're nice, they're expensive, but they're kind of cool. Mine's worn in nicely. But when you drink hot liquid out of it, right, it's going to transfer heat right to your lip. And it doesn't burn, but it's uncomfortable. So my solution on that one, wristband, just one of those silicone wristbands, put it around the rim. And that's going to protect your lip, right? So there's a repurpose on something that it was not intended for. Works pretty well too. Another repurpose I have is I've switched to smart water bottles over the last couple of years. And what happens with smart water bottles is, at least the larger ones, the lid is not attached. So when you go down to filter water, it's very likely you're going to lose it. You got to put it in your pocket and keep track of it. Okay. One of the things I figured out pretty quickly is that Sawyer squeeze bags are notorious for breaking. So a simple upgrade is to use an Evernew bag. I've since switched and I'm now using the CNOC bag. But again, this one has the retainer cap on there, right? So, it also turns out that this thread is identical to the thread on these water bottles. So I get a year or so out of these. These are ready to throw out and replace. I hang on to the lids. I'm repurposing that lid. I think I've got one other I got 2 other repurposes. The other one mentioned umbrellas, right? So I love to make fun of Jim and Dave's umbrellas as parasols. They are just wonderful things, especially the first time you have any amount of rain. Well, after a couple of years, everybody on our team had almost the same umbrella. Well, you're pulling them out of the car. How do you find which is mine? Like, mine was a little more worn out. Mine didn't have the handle on it. What I did on mine is on the very tip of it, I put a red zip tie. It identifies mine. You could do the same thing with the sticker, but zip ties are just a wonderful tool to have, right? So zip ties are great for gear hacks, but they're also, I would call them essential to have in your repair kit while you're on the trail. So I like these two different sizes. I've used these for a couple of different things, to hold things out of the way, to adjust my hip belt, to do those things. So zip ties are great. And then one last repurpose that I have. My most expensive purchase last year was a nice, sexy carbon fiber bear can. And by the way, let's see if we can find, where's my patron saint, MacGyver, right? That's where my trail name comes from.
Oh, nice.
I know it. Yeah. I'd like saved up when I got the bear can. I immediately put it on. So one of the things about these barricades is that they use a screw top, right? So it's a screwdriver that you need to use. Well, that means you got to use your pocket knife to open that up. Well, sometimes I'm lazy. Maybe it's on the other somewhere else on my pack. I never wanted to be locked out of this. So I just went to this is my water treatment bag. It's a light mesh bag. And all I did was I just threaded a washer on the end of that. It's always here. That fits right in here. Right. So now I always have two accesses into my bear can, so I can get to it a couple of different ways.
Can I add to the bear can? Please
do.
Well, I was thinking, so, we all hike in our group. We have 5 in our group typically. And yeah, at some point we all have the same bear can. So one thing we like to do is we have some reflective stickers on our bear can, so we could easily find them at night, especially if, God forbid, a bear ever gets to it and kicks it down somewhere down the hill.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we just made a certain type of pattern. Yeah. Oh, there you go. So you have the cool stickers. But we had some, some stickers that were just reflective, I guess. So yeah, we made goofy patterns, and then you could tell whose is whose very easily.
Right. Because for a while we all had the bear vaults, and I still have a bear vault. I think I'm the only person in the group that has one of these, the carbon fibers right now. Give it time, you guys will all come around to it. It was pricey though. But yeah, I would say that's another modification, right? Is we're taking, reflective tape. A roll of reflective tape is a wonderful thing. Should it roll away, or should you be walking up the trail at night? There's some help on that one. Let's talk about modifying gear. What's interesting is I didn't have as many categories that fit well, although I've done a lot of modifications over the year. So I like to tweak stuff, but I'm also notoriously, I didn't think this about myself. I will spend a lot of money on stuff. Like I spent untold hundreds of dollars on that bear can, but I've got this old REI flash pack, and this is probably older than 15 years old. And every time I think I should get a new one, and I look, I'm like, I'm not going to spend $50 or $60 for a day pack. This one still works. Well, this pack is so old, it never had a bladder sleeve in it. And I no longer use a bladder. I switched to bottles. But when I was using a bladder, I'm like, oh, how am I going to put a bladder in this? I had this idea. I thought, if I could take my bladder and essentially create a lasso with some cord and a cord lock, it could go around this, and I could use that to retain it. Right? But now I need some way to hold it in the pack. So my solution for that one was to just take a nail, right? I just took like a 16 or a 12 penny nail with a pair of pliers, heat it up over a flame. I think I did it over the stove or over a torch, and then carefully, ever so carefully, melted 2 small holes through there. And you can see what we end up with is 2 very nice, clean holes that will not fray, that I melted right through the nylon. And then I thread that through there, and now I can retain my water bladder on the inside, and I can close that up.
Okay.
Yeah. So a couple things on that one, right, is don't ever throw away cord locks that come with all your little ditty bags, and hang on to these little scraps of cord. You can do things with them. So. The other thing that happens in these packs is, this is true of any top loader pack with very minimal pockets, is everything migrates to the bottom, right? The stuff you don't want is at the top, and the things you need, the things you're scared about, they migrate towards the bottom. So I go on a day hike, and my car keys, they were always in the bottom thing. So you get out and you got to dump everything out to get to the car keys. I get tired of that one. But if I could put a key clip, like, because the new packs have a clip for the keys. Again, keep in mind this is a 15-year-old pack, and I'm trying to adjust it. So what I did is I just went and got a name badge, right? So with a little clip on it. And then I broke off that clip. So I just had this little retainer clip here and threaded that through the cord. And this portion is now inside my pack attached to this cord, and it's now my key retainer on the inside. So just a way to find stuff that I had around, right? It was just from some conference. I had that name tag left over and added that on. Could I get that from a new full featured pack? Absolutely, right? They have all those features that are on there. Turns out that I don't use the bladder anymore, so I might shorten that cord. I might just change it to a key clip. But as you go through your hiking career, things are going to change, and you're going to adjust your style as you move through.
So it sounds like you're getting some of your inspiration from the newer materials you see coming out, or is it more of a necessity also?
I think it's probably some of both, right? So I've done that. I've seen things that are on the market, and like, I have a perfectly good whatever, but it's not like, it doesn't have those new features. So how can I get those new features on my old gear? And this is one of those ways. Like, am I going to spend $50 on a new pack to get a key retainer? Hell no. But am I going to make it more than likely? Yeah. And then necessity is the other one. So here's my toilet paper poop bag. Okay. And I got rid of a plastic trowel years ago, and I went to a snow stake. Okay. And this is just an REI snow stake. It's only like $2. So it's a great trowel, super strong, great for rocky soil in the Sierra. Well, it turned out it was just a little too long to fit in this nylon bag. And, there's a purpose why you can't see through this bag, right? Because I pack out my paper, and I don't want to look at it. Okay. It took me a while to get to that point.
We don't want to look at it.
You know, cheers to that.
Yeah.
So it didn't fit in the bag. What do you think I did? Got one guess. Took a hacksaw to it, right?
You cut something, yeah.
Right. You just took a hacksaw to it, re-put the point on it, golden, right? And so it's super minor. Does it count as a gear hack? Sure, yeah. Because I repurposed something and modified it. So I did both with them. So again, we're kind of talking about the mindset of tweaking and changing things as they come down. I could have just, used a plastic trowel. Actually, when I first got my first plastic trowel, I thought it was a little too long, and I shortened that as well. So, go out to your garage, look in your tool shed, and see what you got that you can tweak. This is a good time to remind people that if you got any questions or anything, throw them in the Q&A or the chat, and we'll catch them at the end. So, let's talk about building stuff. Mike, I remember when in our backpacking career, one of the things you built was because you have a sewing skills, is you built, we were doing freezer bag cooking, and you made some cozies for us, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We used to use material. That's right. Yeah. So, I was able to custom do the size to make sure it fit exactly the way I wanted. And then we had, I just sewed on some Velcro so that it would close. Because I know some people, they'll use their beanie, and that could be a mistake, if something ever spilled inside of it.
Bear gnaw on your head at night.
Yeah. And then we did graduate to kind of like that silvery bubble material that you can get at
right
box stores.
So I remember you had some insulated you had some insulated fabric that you had. It was almost like a foam, fabric back foam, and it worked great as an insulation material. The Velcro or a snap worked really well. The one thing that I remember that was a pain in the ass was when you'd go into some of our San Diego foothills, and in grass and weeds, it would pick up the seed, the seed spikes, like your socks might if you didn't have gaiters on. Like, oh, that was annoying. So I remember switching to, a purchased, I think this is an anti-gravity gear bag, right? Actually, this is actually my daughter's that she doesn't use anymore, and I think mine died, so I don't use this anymore. But this is the second iteration that we use. We use the one you made, this, and then something that I have made is I've taken and this is very common. I've taken this is not a Rubbermaid. This is a Ziploc. It's a Ziploc threaded container, and I've just used some Reflectix. If somebody had a roll of Reflectix and I was able to scavenge some off of it, I would never buy this much. But just, cut and glued this on here. And this works great. Now, I've since changed my kit, and this is how I rehydrate my food, and I ditched the cup, and now this is my drinking cup. So it was also a weight savings thing for me as well. You can also buy these pre-made like this.
Yeah, I remember when you guys all had those on one of our last trips, and I came in late, so I that one online somewhere. But you know what? I just, to everyone listening out there, it's, if you have the time, make it, because this guy made them. Ooh, sorry, my internet connection is poor. Yeah, so you just take the time, and if somebody's going to tell you online how to do it, if you come up with the idea, you can see it through.
Right.
So,
yeah. So, if you ultimately say, this is what I want to do, and you don't have the inclination or the access to the materials or the time, or you got more money than you got time, that's great. Just, there's a couple of places where you can buy these and just buy them just like this one. So that's one of mine. Okay, so that's our cozy. Oh, here's one. So before I was using smart water bottles, I was using actually Gatorade bottles. I didn't have any Gatorade bottles around. I've since recycled all of them. So I found a soda bottle. And one of the things about these bottles is, again, that cap. You got to keep track of that cap, because if you lose that cap in the creek, you're kind of screwed for the rest of the trip. So you're going to have to find a stick and put it in there, or use something stupid, or carry an extra cap. So I wanted to retain that cap. So what I've done with my bottles is I've taken just a little short section of nylon string, and then used some 2-part epoxy on the lid. And 2-part epoxy almost was my trail name for a while. And this is in particular, this is JB Weld, right? You mix the A and the B together, and it hardens pretty well. Sticks really well to a lot of different things. And the only thing I found is for this slick plastic like this, I need to sand it just a little bit because it's a little slippery, but I just rough it up a little bit, and this will glue on there. And then this string, now it's the right length and it won't fall off. Sometimes if I'm worried about this slick nylon not slipping out, I'll just put a little dab of glue on that, or epoxy on that as well. So that was the iteration before this iteration. So, okay, so we've got 2-part epoxy. I'm trying to figure out a way to put this in my kit, because this would be nice to have on the trail. That would be nice to have like little tiny capsules of it. That would be kind of cool to find. What do we got next? Next one up is...
That's a true MacGyver. Spoken like a true MacGyver.
Well, at some point I want to get to a thing on first aid kits, and the idea of first aid kits that you use to your skill level, right? If you've got training up to here, you should have a first aid kit up to here. If you've got training to here, you don't have a first aid. Same with repair kits, right? If you've got skills up to here, it'd be really dumb to be out on the trail and be able to put together someone's backpack from scratch and not have those parts. But if you can't turn a wrench, like, don't do any of this stuff. So there was one that popped up in the question, was about windscreens. Done a lot on windscreens, and I'm going to show you a couple of different versions that I've done. I don't even know what my first one was that I have. So a couple things on windscreens is I've been using canister stoves for quite some time, And the big thing about canister stoves is you cannot completely encircle, or you should not completely encircle the canister and the stove, lest you overheat the canister and have a rapid expansion of gas called an explosion. So you need to have some side open to the air. So what I've done is this is a titanium pot, but I've made this interference one. This just kind of fits on the end, and the flame sits right here. So this will sit on the pot, and then this will come off, and it'll store on the side of the pot, right? So this is just some sheet, I think it's some sheet aluminum that I had, and a single pop rivet. I took a little while to cut the template so it was just the right size, but that works. I don't use this pot very often. I've switched my pot, but I do use this for snow camping and melting snow. So I still use this one, just not very often. That's one version of a windscreen that I've done. Another version of a windscreen that I've done is, it turns out, I think this has gotten a lot of love, is a foil windscreen with a thin piece of metal sheet aluminum rather, and a couple binder clips. And what that does is it sits, I'm going to need the pot. The stove is going to sit right in here, and the flame is going to be below that windscreen. So this is sitting on the ground, and then you can pull this off. The stove would be sitting right on top of this one. Doesn't pack quite as well because this strip is kind of big, but it's relatively light, and it goes on half of my stove. So this has worked really well. I think this material is probably from my original winter stove that comes with an MSR stove. So that's another one. My latest iteration of a windscreen that I'm going to be trying for this next season is super simple. It's just a very light piece of heavy gauge foil, but a very small piece of it. And this one is going to sit over the rim of the pot. Again, it'll be below, the flame will be below this. So not super windproof, but definitely more windproof than others. And this will fold up quite nicely inside the pot, and they'll fold very well. My source material for foil is, if you can think of the last time you were at a conference or someone had catering at a work event, those big foil dishes, the disposable foil dishes, so think like enchiladas or pollo loco that came in, the lid from that is perfect. It's nice and flat. It's pretty big. So if you can save one from a catering event, or you can go to Smart and Final, and I think they sell a 3-pack for a couple of dollars, and you can cut those, and it cuts really easy with the scissor. It's better than foil because it's relatively strong. So, Mike, now you're using a jet boil, right?
Yeah, but now that in the last year or so, I've been, you helped me get a mindset of watching my weight, watching my gear. So I could see switching out, and this is good to see more of this stuff, because I thought I was going to get a titanium pod and go the MSR route, but I think I still need to keep thinking about it.
It was interesting when we were talking the other day about maybe why to do some of these gear hacks. And you said, is it about weight? Is it like sometimes it's weight, but it's could be about weight. It could be about functionality. And I think it's probably a mix of those two for me. For me, the functionality probably drives first. If I wanted to save weight, instead of, I thought about, before I thought about ditching this cup, I thought, could this be my cup? And which it could be. Now, if I really wanted to, this would be my hydrate. I could, this could be my cozy, my cook, and my cup. But I'm not at that point at that point yet. Well, when you were telling me about the show, and I think you were making it clear, like, you're not telling people, hey, this is what you do, but it's more like, hey, this is the mindset you can have. And when you have this mindset, then you're kind of looking, you're on the prowl. Well, you're open to like, oh, I can use this. Because I was thinking with the windscreen, I remember you telling me about that years ago, and I thought, I don't want to go buy one of those things. And, and sometimes it won't make sense for you to go spend $5 on something.
but once you know, oh, this is what I want, then you see it, and and it presents itself as a solution for you when
And,
when these things come up.
and Dave threw up a really good point in chat that it's like, and I like to tinker, right? So that's me. I like building stuff. Sometimes that's my therapy. It's like I go out the garage and I'll play with something, and it's not efficient as far as time. It's not like I'm going to, these windscreens, I tried them 10 times before I got to that iteration and tried it on the trail. So I got one more gear hack I'm going to show you again. This is my favorite, and it's my newest one. So I've been an AirPad guy for years, and I just switched to the Thermarest Uber Lite, and this uses a different type of valve, right? It uses this valve. Well, they say it fills up with 10 or 12 breaths. They lie. 12 breaths at 10 or 11,000 foot elevation is going to kill me. And so I want some sort of inflator for this one. So I'm not going to do that with my mouth at 10 or 11,000 feet. So there is a trick where you can take a plastic bag and hold it over this and roll it up and smash that air into the bag. For whatever reason, I'm not particularly coordinated. It could be elevation, it could be whatever, but I don't have that ability to do that one. So I wanted some way of connecting this. Now, David showed me a really cool device that's no longer on the market. It was an inflator bag that would attach onto this one, and it had some sort of connection, and then it would stay here, and then you could crunch the bag down, and it would fill up the air in here. And so I found this one online. So this is not mine. I found it from somebody else. So completely stolen. So it starts with a soda bottle. So we take a soda bottle, and I'm also going to use a hose washer, right? So this is just a garden hose washer. Excuse me. Had the window open for air, and a helicopter flies by. So hose washer and a water bottle. What I'm going to do on that water bottle is drill a hole through the top, and that's a 5/8 or 3/4 inch hole. I forget which. So I've just drilled a hole through that. And then what I'm going to do is take the top of this bottle, and I'm going to cut it. And I'm just going to cut it all the way off, right? Because all I really want is this portion, this top portion, and the cap. That's really what I'm after. Mm-hmm. This hose washer is going to go underneath and be retained by this cap. So it's a sandwiching them in. So what does that look like? I'm going to take that sandwich assembly and put it on my plastic bag. I'm trying to juggle a few things here. I run the plastic bag up through the hole and then flared it out. So now what I've got is this is pinched between the black cap, and I've got a white hose washer. So that white hose washer is exposed. Well, the inside diameter of that hose washer is exactly the right diameter of this valve. Now I've got a nice friction fit, and my hands are free to inflate the bag, and now I can blow into the bag and inflate my pad. 1 to 2 bags, absolutely full. So relatively lightweight. It's probably less than an ounce that we've added in weight, but certainly a lot in convenience and ease for me, because that works for me. So. Mm-hmm. Let's see if we got any questions or any comments that come on. Let's see. We're talking about the beer. Okay. Let's see what. Dave made a comment about smart water bottles that he had one burn a hole in the side of my pack during a desert outing. Wow. I've never heard of a full bottle acting as a lens and melting. That's interesting. There was a question about any shelter hacks or mods. I haven't. That's probably the next level on building and modification, but that would be a good one, right? Because that would definitely lend itself well to tarps and maybe doing some simple sewing with Dyneema or Sil nylon. So that would be good.
And then with kind of closely related to hacks is double duty. And it doesn't feel as legit as when a company sells it to you. But, I mean, you've switched to tents that use your trekking poles as your poles. So that's not really a hack, but it's a double duty, you know.
Agreed. Yeah, that's definitely the ultralight mantra. Is everything should do two things, or everything that does two things is more worthwhile than the things that only do one. Okay, well, we're out of time. It's 7:30, so next week we're going to be revisiting food again, and Sandra's going to come on, and we're going to talk about food. This time, we're going to talk about dehydrating food. So home food that you dehydrate yourself. Maybe we'll explore a little bit on freeze dryers and see what that's about too. I'm still fleshing out how the topic's going to go. So, but that's next week. Sometime this evening or tomorrow morning, we will have this up on YouTube. And until then, we will have a good drink, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Alrighty. Thank you, guys. See you.
Okay, take care, all.